file processing. How do we do in Python? Very important one. Now we are slowly starting into real-time world. So open is the built-in function. It's used to work with files. Okay, and the syntax is open. You give the file path. That is the first parameter. File path. Next is in what mode you are working with this file. Okay. First thing, what is file path? In the file path, let's say this keep 1.1, uh, relative path. Next is absolute path. So when I say relative path, what does it mean? Where my program is running, it is 9 while loop processing. This is my file where my program is there, which means when I'm executing this program, the location my program is referring to this class nodes. This is the folder where it is running. So it has access to all the files inside this class nodes directly. So if there is a simple text file, right? I can actually just give simple text file because it is in the same location. Or if there is subfolder inside this, okay, let's say files, and inside this you have a file, and I just keep some data I'm just keeping. If I can go from here to next level also, either my simple.txt is also by the relative path, or my files folder and simple1.txt. These two are with the relative path because the where my program is running from there I can go forward in the same location or the sub location. That is the relative path. Suppose if you want to access the file outside this class nodes, right? We can't go by the relative path. We have to go by the absolute path, which is like complete path. Let's say I have a data here, right? So if I right click here, copy path reference, PyCharm only will give you different options. Whether you want to just copy file name, absolute path, all these things. So I have to copy absolute path, and that is what I should use. So that is what difference between relative and absolute path. We will see example with both. Next, what is the mode you are reading your file? Mode is of two characters. There are two characters. Now let's say first character 1. So what is this? There are four different modes. R represents reading. File opened for reading. This is a default value. So if you don't specify the mode, right, by default it is a reading mode. The second one is W, file open for writing. If you want to write any data, you open in W mode. Next we have append. What is append? Writing means it's a pretty new file or empty file you are starting writing. Append is existing file, you don't want to lose the existing data, and start appending, start adding the data to the existing file. That is what append mode. Then we have X. This is just to create a file, empty file I would say. And if file is already there, it gives error. If file exists. And here also, if file is not there, right? If it will give, if file doesn't exist. Because you are trying to read a file, but there is no file. So it will give error. If file is there, then it won't give any error here. It will just overwrite the file. If file exists. Here, let's say you are trying to open the file in append mode, but file is not there, right? It will create the file if file doesn't exist. We don't need to remember all these things. As you work, you will remember by default. So now let's go to the next character in mode. Okay, now, how you are reading the data? This is text mode. You are reading it as a text. And the last one is bytes mode. So the bytes mode is used in rare cases such as images. So if you have any image, if you want to read the image, right? That is where we use the byte mode. Now let's start with an example how we actually work with the files. Open. So now I am going with relative path. That path should be given in string simple.txt, comma, what I want to do, I want to read the file. So R, that is the reading. What is the next mode I want to do is the text mode. This is how I open the file. So once I open the file, I have to assign to a variable. Otherwise, how I will get the data. So now I'm just keeping it as, let's say, file. I open the file and I assign to variable called file. Now you just open the file. Okay, there is no data. Let me print file and show you. No such file or directory. Okay, you if the file is not there, this gives error, right? That is what we mentioned here. Error if file doesn't exist. The file name is sample. The file name I gave is simple. That was the reason it gave the error. So now see, you don't see the data. It is just a file object you got. Then how do we actually read the data inside the file? Read whole file as string. That is the first way of doing it. So how we do that? We have to use the file object dot read. If you use the read method, the whole file content will be read as a single string. So, and remember, we have to close the file at the end. The reason is, you are right, when you open the files and if you are trying to close from backend, it will say the file is already in use, right? So that kind of problems would occur, and sometimes your file also may get corrupted. So it's always good practice to close the file as you use. So we are opening the file here, we are reading the file here, we are closing the file here. When you are opening, the close is mandatory. I mean, when I say mandatory, as a best practice. So now you see we printed file. This was a file object, first one. Then this is the content what we have in the sample text. You see, this is the content I have. The same thing we got now. That is how we get whole file as a single string. Now, if you want to see, this is a new line. See, for first line, second line, third line, fourth. We have 5 lines here. We can also read each line. Let's say read. I want to just read one line for now. Print file dot read line. So what read line does? It will just print first line. So if you keep reading, right, you have to use the different method, like all the lines. Read all lines. Read lines is the method. Read line, read lines. Now you see we got a list as output with Each line has one item with line ending that line character also. So we got total 5 because we have 5 lines there. This is how you can read all the lines from the file. And there is one more way using the for loop. For line in file print line. This should work. Yeah. You see, we got, why there is a extra space coming? Because of the new line character at the end of each line that we were getting, right? And print by default add a new line. So that is why we were getting it as a new line with one blank. So this is how you can read a file when you open in RT mode. Entire file as a single string, one line, all the lines as a list, in the for loop each line.
బ్రో లైన్
Yeah.
ఎందుకు స్పేస్ వచ్చింది? ఎంటీ లైన్ ఎందుకు వచ్చింది?
Uh, when we printed this, right? First one. Okay, read lines. I don't think both will do. Let's see. Hmm. So when we read at each item, you see this new line character. So the same new line character comes here also.
ఓకే.
And the print itself will give you new line, right?
అవును, అవును.
So there are two. One is in the item itself, second one by the print. And if you don't want endline character, right, that we have seen that one parameter. If you just put this, that means it won't add that new line when we are printing it. So now you see you will not get that extra line. Got it? That is how we read the file and use the content. So now let's go to writing. How do we write? Okay, now let's see appending mode. Now this is read mode is done. Now let me open same thing in append mode. See, T is by default is a text mode, right? Even if I don't give T, just give R, it is same. Even if I don't give R, just give this, it is same. Because here this is a default mode and here R is a default mode. So if I don't give R, if I don't give T, that is by default RT. Let me show you, it works the same way. Just printing this. Yeah, the same because it opened in the read mode. That is what default. So in the real time, when it is read mode, right, we don't use anything, just open the file path because it by default it's a read mode. Now let's say I want to append some new data to my existing file. That is what T is not required because by default it's a text mode. So I'm just giving A. Now file is opened. So now how do I write our new line to my existing one? Right? File dot write whatever you want to write now. Okay, new line added. I'm just executing. Code finished, but let's open the file and see what happened. You see here new line added. This message has come. If we want to add into next line, we have to add that new line character. You have to just give this. So first new line will be added, then next line. So you can write like this. Okay, another line, last line. It will keep adding. So now you see we have opened it in append mode. So existing data shouldn't be disturbed. Okay. In the existing data, we already have new line added. This will not be removed. We get just new data. Let's see. Yeah, now if you open, you see new line added, another line, last line. How they are coming? Because we are adding that new line character in the string itself. And if you open this in a writing mode, right, it will get overwritten. So now let's write into new file, which is not there now. Sample2 is not there, right? So I am creating a new file now in the write mode and writing this data. So when I execute, you see now sample2 is created immediately. If you open, we got this. Why first line is empty? Because before new line only we give this new line character. That is so we can create a new file. So if you open something in X, right, it's just empty file. Now you see sample has come. So the difference between W and X, right? Here, if file is there and you are trying to open in X mode, it will give error. Now let's see. Uh, File exists. That is advantage with X. Suppose you are creating a new file and you just want to ensure file shouldn't be there as per the expectation. That if somebody is already created the file, you don't want to do it again. So such cases you can use X. It will ensure okay when file is there it will throw error. If file is not there then only it creates. That is advantage with X. And you can just write however we wrote in W mode, right? Same way because we already opened this. Let me write 4. Now you see 4, you got the data.
If you
That
say
is how we write.
with X, it opens with the write mode.
Sorry?
If it is a with
X
X,
is
if the file does
simply
not exist,
hmm.
it creates with a write mode.
No,
Is
if
it?
it exists, it will throw error. It will say
No, if
file
it
already.
doesn't exist, it
Yes,
create a file with a writing mode or
correct,
reading
correct,
only mode.
correct. Right
Writing mode.
mode, right mode.
What if you wanted to open only read only?
We have R no
No,
R.
no. Acha. Okay, okay.
R is the read
Mm-hmm.
mode.
Read mode.
Yeah. W. There
Not
is
just. I think this the question is logical. I
okay.
wanted to create a new file
Hmm,
with read only mode. Doesn't make sense.
exactly. It doesn't make sense, right?
Mm.
So there is something called W plus I heard, but I have never seen used. W plus I heard it both for read and write. I don't know how it works. Let me try this. Okay, now what happened? This the same thing. Okay, ignore only these four R, A, W, and X. Okay, one last important thing before we close. So now we have been closing this file, right? Always. If you don't close this, there are chances that your file will be corrupted, right? There is something called context manager. So context manager, like where you create a context, work under that context. So as soon as your work completed inside that context, the whatever connectivity you are making, right? That will be closed automatically. So the syntax is with. When you say with, you are creating a context manager. So with, let's say I'm opening the file in read mode. Whatever variable we were using before this, right? That variable we should keep here as then the variable name. This is the syntax. With open as what is the variable you are using. Now whatever we were doing, right? Same thing we have to do, but you see the indentation should be followed. That is how Python know whatever we are doing with the indentation that is under this context manager. Now file dot read. So what we do, how to close? We actually do file dot close. So with the context manager also we create the same thing. Now you see everything whatever was there we got. So now the advantage with context manager, right? This is optional. Even if you don't keep this, right? File closed automatically after with. If you have some other statement outside this, right? That means your outside context. That means your context manager is over when this print comes. So your file is closed automatically. And where this is used in real time, right? This f dot close, file dot close, it is very well possible that you may miss this closing the file. And the same thing applicable for database connections, right? You are connecting to database and you are forgetting to close. The connection is still opened and there is unnecessary network consumption, right? And the server also will be busy with so many connections. So such cases, we use the context manager and write under that. So now let's say this is the data I want. Data. So I got the data. So I just want data, nothing else. I'm opening the context manager, reading the file. Then outside this, I will do whatever I want with my data. So here I open the file, I close the file. Now I am not worried about the file because I already got the data into my program. So now I can do whatever I want, right? So let's say if we are opening read lines, it will be a list of all the items. So now how do you get rid of this n at the end, right? The simple way. Now let's use the list comprehension here. Okay. So how do I remove anything from a string using the replace method, right? Replace, that is a Newline character I want to replace with nothing. That's how I remove for I in data. So I'm iterating through each item. I'm just replacing the last 10 character. So now, okay, before and after, let me print data. Now you see, before there was a Newline character. After there is no Newline character. So now I can play with this data. I got everything from the file, right? So let's say what else we want to do. I want to split this data by each word, assume, right? So I just want all the words in my list. Let's say that is the requirement, right? Uh, if you do I dot split by the space, let's say for I in data. You see now we got list of list because for each statement when we do split that comes as a new list, right? So I got one more list inside as words, right? Now let's say if you want to get all these words into single list, now it is list of list, right? What we can do is mm, you can actually create one new list. Let's say output equal to. So remember the method, how do we add items from one list to another list, right? Using the extend. That extend method you remember, right? Extend, I have to do for loop. Then I should do extend using the split method. Now, if I just print output, I am going to get all the words into single list. Now you see here, this data set contains of 114. See all these things, all the words into single line. See, sorry, single list. Now, There could be a duplicate data also, right? Duplicate word, same word repeated twice. So I want to delete the duplicates. How can I do that?
Set.
So I need to
Convert to set.
convert it to set and convert it back to list. Let's say I'm just checking the length before, then I'll just convert to set of output. Again, convert it back to list, right? So I can use just list again. Then let us check the length. Yeah, there are no duplicates, unfortunately. Okay, I can do one thing. I can just add, okay, this line I'll repeat. Okay, I just repeated that line, save the file, we'll execute the code again. Array, how come? 107, 107. Oh, my bad. The variable name is wrong here.
Data.
Hmm. 107, 55. The line repetition was not required actually. Save. So 90 was there. So with the duplicates, we got only 55. So you can also now, okay, experiment. How
I
much,
think
how many times each word is repeated in the list. You can do the counting also. So,
this will be useful, like in a real time,
mm, mm,
to read
correct.
the error logs or something to
Exactly.
find out.
Yes, yes. We can also get the count of how like how many times. See in the
Yeah.
PySpark there is
Mm.
famous interview question. What code program? They just give plain text, ask you to okay how many times each word is repeated. You give me top 5 or top 10 counts, right? So now instead of now removing the duplicates, so how can we get the count now? Okay, so let's say word count. We have to keep a dictionary, right? Because for each word I want the count. Now what should I do? I should loop through all the items, right? So I don't want to loop through entire list because it has duplicates, right? So I just want to loop through unique items. So I'll just convert it to set. That is what output, right? Set of output. Now, how do I get a count of a value in a list? Remember the list method, output dot count. This way, I get count of my word in a list. So what is this count, right? This will be a value to my dictionary. So I am just adding W, which is a key, and the value will be my count. Okay. So now if you print word count, you will actually get the all the words along with their count. You see, passed to into to 4 times. Okay. We can actually sort by the value this dictionary, and you will get top 10, top 5 words. For that, we need a lambda functions that we will see after the functions. How do you sort based on a value?